Hi, I'm Grant Asplund. I'm here with my good friend Pete Nicoletti. Pete's the field CISO for Checkpoint in the Americas on the East. And today, Pete and I are going to kind of break down and talk about what's arguably the biggest problem in cybersecurity today. And I asked you, do you know what it is? You know, it's not phishing. It's not ransomware. Those are big problems. And we know they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But the fact of the matter is, it's really coming down to the human element. And so Pete and I are going to be talking about how machine learning and artificial intelligence is playing a role and really can potentially have a very positive role on helping us deal with this huge delta of human resources. So Pete, let's kind of break it down, okay?
Grant, thanks for inviting me to this. It's always exciting to be interviewed by you. I know you're in rare form. You're a top 5 security blog in the whole world. So, you know, I'm just sneaking in here, and hopefully we'll be able to share some good nuggets on this problem.
Well, it's kind of you, brother, but you know, the fact of the matter is the only reason I've got any ratings in my podcast has been because of the guests that I have. And so I would definitely say you fall in that same category. So let's kind of, look at cyber attacks exploding, going through the roof. And we know, or certainly I believe, you see machine learning and AI as almost a necessity to kind of address that. Why don't you expand on that a little bit?
Well, sure. Let's attack the first point. As a global community of security experts, we are failing the companies that we work for. If you look at the statistics, cyber attacks continue to rise year over year. We saw another 13% increase in certain regions. We've seen other regions, like in North America, 61% increase. We know that the technologies and the way that we're leveraging the technologies, even though we have great technologies out there, there's a number of issues that we're going to pick apart here that are derivative of us not having not just enough security professionals, but it's trained and experienced security professionals. So the cyber attacks are going to continue to rise, but there is some hope on the horizon, and we're going to explore a couple of ways that artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I'm going to kind of lump them together, even though they're complementary technologies. We're going to talk about some of those challenges throughout this little chat we're going to have here.
So, you mentioned this, I think, or alluded to one of the compounding issues, but you could argue it's the traditional tools that organizations have been using arguably are failing, right? I mean, not the least of which we don't have a common language or means by which we can all homogeneously, heterogeneously, call it whatever you want, but everybody to all get along and share their intelligence. And that ends up being a huge consequence to closing the gaps, isn't it?
It is. I mean, Grant, we have, if you think about it, the ecosystem of tools that we have is over 6,000 security companies. They all want a piece of your budget. They're all the shiny new thing. They're all a point solution. They don't have an integrated full service stack.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Here's the thing. Companies are trying to make the best decisions they can. They get a renewal. They're looking at things sometimes with too much of a tunnel vision.
Right.
A lot of people have done best of breed decisions. They read the Gartner report and they say, well, I've got to get this for this one issue.
For 20 years, Pete, and then some, that's been the mantra.
Yep.
Best of breed has been the mantra. I mean, I saw that. We've experienced and lived it for many, many years. And it is kind of an interesting turnaround. I saw this headline, the new best of breed is vendor consolidation,
Right.
which was pretty telling, and really to highlight your point. There's too many moving parts, and we got to break it down.
There is. And if you look at, for example, I always break it down to a playbook. If you're, the average company uses, 60 different security tools. At one large enterprise company I was at before, I counted 167 tools. And
oh my God!
I know it's we had a SIM that didn't talk to this, and we would spend months on integrating logs and months on looking at APIs, and at the end of the day, it was a substandard integration. Now think about this. I would sit with my security professionals, and I did something that a lot of CISOs don't do. I looked at their agony, and we have something here at Checkpoint called the agony meter, but I used to sit with with my engineers and my people and watch what they did, and I was amazed at how inefficient it was. They would have to log in and log out. They'd have to cut and paste things that to create a ticket, and the playbook for like a ransomware investigation or a forensic, it would take hours. And meanwhile, the hackers have gone from spending a couple of days within a system now within minutes to exploiting it. So once the initial vulnerability occurs, the time that it takes for them to exploit it and start going east and west and spreading ransomware, that's down to minutes and seconds. So if your playbook is not integrated, and you can't be doing chair swivel, head swivel, log in, log out, cut, paste. You can't do that. You have to have a much more efficient playbook, and we're going to talk a little bit about how that can be tweaked a little bit with artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Well, one of the things that leads me to, Pete, is when I've got 20, 30, 50, 70, 100 and whatever different tools, and I know all of them are spewing the security practitioner spam alerts, right? We're over alerted. And because there's no sense of correlation and context to those, I mean, they're all firing. It's like a sparkler. Yeah. It's going in every direction and just blowing white hot. It's overload, right? I mean, what's happening is
there's a couple of issues that occur with account overload or alert overload. Number one, we call it drowning in alerts. We see, and think of it as Chicken Little. Think of it as, the people that are out there, the security professionals are dealing with it. They're wanting to look at everyone as the security professional you desire to, but 90% of them are never looked at. And if we look at in past cases where customers have been hacked, the evidence is there, but it was overlooked by the security professional because they were dealing with other things. So the account alert overload leads to a lot of other related issues.
Well, it's the boy who cried wolf. I mean, when I'm getting thousands of alerts and they're benign, right? I mean, I start to, I don't have to go look at those.
Yeah, you lack the confidence. The alert overload has, you don't know what to prioritize. Your tools are, if they don't have context, if you're just getting an alert from your SIM saying, hey, your endpoint's, sending up some kind of alert without context on what that alert is, now I'm wasting time digging in. I've got to log into the endpoint solution. I've got to see what created that alert. And then, that takes minutes and time. And if you're being, inundated with these, you're not going to look at everyone, and some are going to go right past you.
Yeah, some of the uber simple example I'll use sometimes is just, a CSPM says, "Oh, Pete, your S3 bucket's not encrypted." Well, if you have 500 S3 buckets and you're getting 150 alerts, and maybe it's okay. Maybe there's nothing that you're concerned about. Without context, it really is a big, big problem. But it also takes the human element, right? I mean, it also takes the individual that has the technical aptitude and knowledge to understand where to go and find that context to assemble that concern and either eradicate it or escalate it. How big is the skills gap right now? Really?
Well, if you think about it, there are some statistics that are terrible. Microsoft pops out some good stats on, every 2 cybersecurity jobs filled, there's 1 empty. So, we're seeing, 30% unfulfilled. We know that it's millions. In the United States, I think the unfilled capacity is 2 million people.
And it's growing, right? That's the other thing.
We're not fixing it yet. Checkpoint has some initiatives where we're working with universities to try to fill the skills gap. And it's not just butts and seats. It's also, if you think about some of the other challenges that a lack of security professionals create, it's a rotating door because the grass becomes greener on the other side, and the security professionals, they see another opportunity. There's sign-on bonuses, there's stock, there's golden handcuffs. Mm-hmm. At the executive level, the tenure is typically, I think it's like 13 months for average. And then the worst stat is the ones that have been breached, they're actually more valuable. So, the people that have failed at their jobs are actually getting paid more. So
the war scars.
Because they have the battle scars. So, we've got to, there's got to be some solutions. And that's where artificial intelligence comes in. There's a number of things that artificial intelligence can do, from, backing up to your example of the alert overload, being able to triage those alerts, right? Being able to assemble the contextual based information from multiple tools, build the ticket, the security ticket that the analyst, the human's going to look at, and be able to look at it from a human perspective on what's happening with the business. Is it a digitization launch? Is there a reason for this type of an issue? We just rolled out a new tool and it's it needs to be tuned. The humans, we're never going to get away from humans interpreting the results of artificial intelligence, machine learning in our future. In someday when they gain consciousness, according to Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking, they'll be able to make those kind of decisions for us, and we're just going to be sit back and eat and go on vacation. But until then, the expert human that understands the company's business and that's been around, you have to have. You can't have a rotating door with your security professionals. You have to make them happy. You have to make sure that the tools that they're using are efficient. And that's the other thing artificial intelligence can do is actually improve morale. If you think about it, if the worst parts of your crappy job are being fixed by a machine, then you're going to like your job better. I mean,
go do the stuff that is more challenging, more intriguing.
More challenging. You're going to be able to help the business. You're going to be able to
not so mundane.
Yeah, you're going to be a strategist. You're going to be, propelling the business rather than just dealing with the avalanche of alerts and.
Well, we know, right? The cost year over year of a breach continues to go up. I think it's up again this year, like 40 million or something. And so I'm curious.
It's about 4 million, a little over 4 million per breach.
No. Oh, I see. I meant 40,000 up over last year.
I see. Yes.
I think like 3.7 to 4 something. But either way, it's continuing to increase. And I think I want to hear how AI is going to address that stuff. But you hit on something, and it has to do with the AI has to learn the I from some other I, doesn't it? I mean, there has to be some intelligence that teaches that AI, because if it gets a poor teacher, then it's going to perform poorly. Isn't that true?
It's true. You can't, if it's untrained, you're going to get false positives. It's not going to be valuable.
Right.
So it does have to be trained. The models have to be tested and validated. And for example, that's why, and it's not a single artificial intelligence algorithm. In Checkpoint's case, we leverage the most number of artificial intelligence algorithms of any security company out there. We have over 60. If you look at what they're doing, for example, in our new acquisition of Avanan, there's dozens of artificial intelligence looking at different things. For example, when was that domain registered? Is it a 3-day-old domain that now you're getting a spam or targeted fish from? Well, as a human, you can't you can't look up every time a domain is registered.
No way.
You need to have a machine learning looking at that. You also have to look at, what is the contents of that message? It has to be something that artificial intelligence looks at continuously. Yeah.
Well, and the exciting thing, at least from my perspective, Pete, is when I hear about AI and its use, like, for example, in mammogram analysis and being able to detect early onset of some forms of breast cancer, it's now shown AI outperforms the human massively, right? So the benefits can be profound if we teach them correctly, right?
Well, think about it. The biggest issue, and one that you're referring to, is the scale issues. Humans can't think in millions, billions, trillions.
Right.
So if think of the data that an MRI or a CAT scan is collecting. It's as it turns out to be, it's petabytes of video, and to be able to be at your peak performance as a human, to look at slide after slide after slide and make the right decision, even as an expert, you're going to have blurry eyes, you're going to have a bad day. Artificial intelligence doesn't have a bad day. They're consistent. The model is working. And, the analogy I like to use is the old needle in the haystack analogy. And I've written about it in the companion white paper that we have. Think about how big a haystack is. A haystack is 2,000 pounds of hay. Each straw there's about 1,000 straws in each pound of hay. So one needle in 2,000 pounds of hay. But if you think about 0 days and how infrequent they are, you're literally looking for a needle in 5 million haystacks. As a human, that's hard to conceive of. Think about, you're going to pick apart 5 million haystacks to find a single needle. Humans can't work at that scale. But artificial intelligence can do that all day long without complaint. But once again, back to your point, the expert has to create that model, has to validate it, make sure that it's finding the outliers, and that it's presenting the information and it's being leveraged appropriately and brought to the attention of the humans that can actually make and do something about it.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly exciting times. You and I were talking earlier about how so many innovations in technology, we saw early signs of it in science fiction, whether it's books or movies, right? And certainly I think some of this is coming to fruition and true again. Certainly exciting about where our future.
We just don't want Skynet and the Arnold Schwarzenegger version. We want to.
That's right.
We want we want a gentler, kinder artificial intelligence. So we need to leverage it before Arnold comes to save us. And we are. We really are. We're seeing massive amounts of success with artificial intelligence. We're seeing, if you look at some of the results of, say, for example, Log4j, we just went through Log4j in December. Check Point had the absolute best result at spotting and preventing that issue because they leveraged artificial intelligence. They saw that those 22 characters in a string, they saw that this has never been seen before, so it was immediately rejected. We're seeing it in the other supply chain attacks and other ransomware that the variants, these companies, they're not companies, but the hackers are trying to create tools that conventional tools miss. They're running them past virus total to see if the traditional,
if they make it,
they make it past, and then they release it. So unless you have a secret weapon of artificial intelligence looking for anomalous behavior and outliers and differences, you're going to fail. Conventional tools are failing.
Well, and it's certainly a key weapon, a key arrow in our quiver that I think we're going to continue to utilize to fill this gap of human technical resources, and certainly it's one that I think is going to be able to help. May not get us completely out of the woods, but I think it's going to help us. So
it is going to help, and certainly we need to focus on the root problem, and that's training and hiring and fostering more security professionals. But in the meantime, we've got to give them help. We have to increase their morale. We've got to give them tools. We've got to give them integrated tools, integrated stacks that work together. And we've got to leverage artificial intelligence to make their jobs easier and more effective and more efficient. Otherwise, you're going to have a revolving door, and you're going to suffer the consequences.
That's right. And, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, right? We need to tackle this one differently. But Pete, really always enjoy talking with you, hearing your insights and expertise. Thanks for spending time with us today.
Grant, it's a pleasure, and reach out to us here at Checkpoint if you really need to see how we're leveraging those engines. We're just coming off CPX, and we've just launched the fastest firewall in the world. We've got the best efficacy with our email solution. We just bought a new code scanning company. There is so many good things happening at the leading cybersecurity company in the world. We want to hear from you. And Grant, it's always a pleasure working with you. It's not sort of cool that we've known each other for about 20 years, and this is a lot of fun. And I hope to get invited back, Grant.
Yeah, I'm sure you will, without a doubt, Pete. You're one of our key resources. And I think what we can close on is everyone deserves the very best security, and that's what we're certainly delivering. And again, thanks for your time today, Pete.
Fantastic. Thanks, Grant. See you again soon.
You bet.